Hey there, and welcome to We Only Look Thin. Before we get started, we wanted to let you know that this week's episode was recorded in the before time.
Yes, long ago, back on March 1st, 2020, we recorded this episode.
Before the big one hit.
Before we were all taking COVID as seriously as we are now, we recorded this, so it's another one. We don't talk about it. It's very jokey.
Yeah, lots of slide whistles, lots of references to 1980s songs. So enjoy.
If you're not interested in our shenanigans,
then
this
do
is not
go
the episode
no
for
further.
you. Yes, but hopefully you are interested in our shenanigans and wish to check this out.
Yeah, so enjoy. Hello, and welcome to a double trouble episode of We Only Look Thin. I am Katherine Weigel. I've lost about 150 pounds. I'm a work in progress. And with me today is the Thompson to my twin,
Donald Weigel, and I am double the trouble. Catherine by herself is a certain amount of trouble.
I'm a particular amount of trouble.
And
yes.
I am double that amount of trouble, and I have lost a little over 100 pounds and have kept it off for about 2 years now.
Congratulations.
Thank you, and thank you for being here with me today.
You're welcome.
I know you have a lot of choices of things to do.
Well, it's a big day today because you just told me that it is Chopin's birthday.
It is Chopin's birthday, and as many of you longtime listeners will know, we talk about Chopin a lot, and Chopin got it done.
Turns out, my guy Chopin got it done in 39 years.
I know.
He was only 39 when he passed away.
39. If he were alive today, he would be 190 years old. And I'd like to think that if he had listened to this podcast and followed our advice, that he'd still be with us.
Well,
still be getting it done.
See, here's the thing. He was a prodigy. He got things done early.
Yeah.
And we are kind of the opposite of
We're
Chopin.
late bloomers.
We're late bloomers. We're here to tell you that you can do your best Chopining after age 40. Like, he dropped it off at 39, but we picked it up at 40.
I like to think that if I had felt my best in my 20s, that I would now, relatively speaking, feel miserable. But because I was
We're on the way up.
Terribly out of shape for most of my life, now I feel amazing.
No, but like I've actually read, I can't remember any of the examples right now, but I've read about people who didn't hit their stride until they were older in life.
Yeah.
Like, Mr. Rogers actually didn't start Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood until he was 49 years old.
Wow.
Like,
really? Is that true?
Yeah, I read his autobiography.
Wow.
He got it done at 49.
Looked much younger than that.
But he did a lot before he actually got to the part where he became famous.
Yeah.
And we spend a lot of time just sort of thinking.
We have done nothing before we got to the part where we became mildly famous on the internet.
But it's important to remember that there's always time to get it done.
Yeah, very
like
true.
Chopin, you're like, if I didn't get it done by 39, like Chopin, why should I even bother? That's what all of you out there in TV land are saying.
That's every one of you in TV land.
But Chopin.
All of you watching our television program right now.
I don't know where they're watching. I still have family who think it's a YouTube channel.
I know.
They think it's a blog.
Don't understand what podcasts are at all.
That's fine. They don't need to listen. I share a lot. It turns out I share a lot of private information on this podcast.
You throw your family members under the bus all the time.
Yeah,
It's better that they don't watch our television program.
Anywho.
Just in case I've actually confused anyone, this is a podcast, and you're listening to it.
Yeah.
Just to clear that up.
Lucky you. But we've decided to call this episode Doctor.
And it's mostly about the Thompson twins and their rise to fame.
Doctor. Don thought it was a different doctor. He thought it was
Doctor, tell me the news. I got a bad case.
We're just going to sing the hits. Yeah. But I can't remember what I was making the other day, but I doctored it up.
Yeah.
You've heard of doctoring things. You don't need a PhD or an MD to doctor things.
No, you don't. You can can call yourself a doctor.
Please don't call yourself a doctor.
Yeah, don't do that. I think it actually is illegal.
Yeah, but the Thompson twins weren't even twins. They
No.
weren't related. I was very confused.
Turns
as a
out
kid.
it's illegal to call yourself a doctor to impersonate a doctor, but it's not illegal to impersonate a twin. You can do that legally.
But you know when you're a kid and you're like, is Boy George a girl or a boy?
Yeah.
Or I didn't know what non-binary was at that point.
He's got boy in the name, but
But he looks like I didn't know.
I
And, like,
remember the
Thompson
moment I
twins,
saw
how are
Boy
they
George for the first
twins?
time on Solid Gold, and I said to my dad,
On
I said,
Solid
boy,
Gold.
when I heard this song, it was on Solid
know.
Gold. I was like, when I heard this song, I thought it was a boy singing, but look, it's a girl. And my dad just kind of was like, well.
But yeah, the Thompson twins, I expected to see them, and I saw them, and I said, they are decidedly not twins. I don't know what to believe now.
Wow, that was your big takeaway from the show, that they weren't actual twins.
But it turns out when you name something double, it gets better, doesn't it?
It really does.
And there should be a name, and maybe there is, if you're listening right now and you know when you say something like, I'm hungry,
yeah.
like a hippo, or
Yeah,
I'm
like,
thirsty,
are you
thirsty?
hungry or are you hungry?
Like, do you like him or do you like him?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
But like your Duran Duran, so fine, they named it twice.
They sure did.
They did.
Yeah, and it's doubly good because of it.
It is, and I
Now
also-
I'm hungry like the wolf.
But like Toto doesn't count because that's just like
That's one word.
that's just one word, but it's said it twice. Twice is nice. But then there's Mr. Mister, which is actually the name of my personal misting service.
Yeah,
that
yeah. If you're, are you too hot? Is it not humid enough where you are? Try our Mister.
Mister.
Yeah.
But we're sticking with Doctor for this episode. So we have talked about pumping up the volume with food. We have talked about perfectionism being procrastination.
We sure have.
And we're doing kind of a mashup today of sort of that idea.
Whoa, a mashup.
Yeah, a mashup. Why
I've
not?
heard of mashups. Kids do those all the time.
I don't like it when I hear different versions of songs from my youth that they've changed up. We heard like a techno version of something. It didn't go well.
Yeah, there was like a remix on Sirius Radio of some 80s
Yeah, it was like
song.
Electric Avenue or something. I was like, that's not my Electric Avenue.
Yeah.
So to go back to the purpose of this this podcast, we have talked about perfectionism being a loophole. I'm sure you've said it yourself. You know me, I'm either 100% on or 100% off. I've
Yeah.
heard that recently
Yeah.
from people who are talking about their health journeys.
Yeah, it drives me crazy, mostly because it reminds me of how I used to be. You know, well, if I can't do it 100%, I may as well not do it at all.
Well, but I did that. I would say like, well, you know me. I'm either working out 100% or I'm nothing, or
Yeah.
I'm either on a diet or I'm off a diet, or if I'm dieting, then I'm not exercising. I can't seem to do both at the same time. Like,
Yeah.
and I identified as someone who couldn't get it done, like Chopin.
No, Chopin did get it done.
But I thought it must be nice to be Chopin because
Yeah.
I couldn't get it done. But when you hear yourself saying, you know me, I'm 100% on or 100% off. You know me, I'm all salads or all cookies. 100% is just a habit.
Yeah.
Saying that you only give 100% or none percent is unsustainable. And we unsustainably did that for 40 plus years.
We certainly did.
I thought it was a circumstance, not a choice. And we are going to spend this episode talking about ways that you can modify to make progress instead of standing still, because if you can't get perfection, you're not going to do anything. It's really kind of a stubborn loophole.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you say to yourself, I can't do anything, and so you do nothing. But we're here to tell you that instead of doing nothing, you can Doctor.
I was going to say, pump up the volume.
Pump up the volume.
So we always, it works when you have sort of a catchphrase to go along with something that you're doing, because you realize, like, if I'm adding salsa to salad dressing, it's Doctor.
Yeah.
And I'm also pumping up the volume. See, there's so many
Exactly.
fun ways to say words. But
Fun to say these words.
But I was listening to an episode of the Brooke Castillo podcast a couple of years ago, and she talked about not wanting her employees to give A+ work at every turn. And I think we do that. And we think like, what do you mean? Like you want to do your best work.
Yeah.
But she was talking about giving like B- C work is passable. You don't need to send the perfect email every single time.
Wish I had a boss like that, by the way.
Well, but there are certain things that we give like that extra white glove service to that doesn't really demand that extra step.
Yeah.
And it is partially not a waste of time, but it is a way to spend time instead of focusing on other activities.
Yeah, and one of my favorite expressions, and I wish I could remember where I first heard it, but is don't let perfection be the enemy of the good.
Yeah, I think that was Gretchen Rubin.
Yeah.
Friend of the show.
Friend of the show, Gretchen Rubin. And what that means is if you can do something that's good, don't do nothing or something bad just because you can't do the perfect thing. If the perfect thing, if you're like, the perfect thing is going to elude me, I can't possibly put the perfect thing together, but I could do something good, but instead I'm just going to do nothing. I mean, it's kind of that mindset.
Well, and we still struggle with it because I know in my life, I think I have all of these goals or aspirations. I want to spend an hour meal prepping. I want to spend an hour reading. I want to do, an hour yoga class. I want to read for a half hour. I have a hobby that I'd like to invest in, but unless I can do it for an afternoon, I'm not going to do it at all. I've got to clean out the garage, but if I can't spend the whole day doing it, I'm not going to do it at all.
Yeah.
And Donald and I are actual people in 3D life.
We are actual human people. Yes.
If this was just a bot. Artificial intelligence.
Exactly.
But we still catch ourselves.
At least there'd be some intelligence, even if it was artificial.
But we catch ourselves saying, I don't have time to do that. We don't have time to read. We don't have time to do yoga. We don't have time to meal prep. And really, when we're thinking about time, we think about half-hour, 2-hour, all-day commitments. And so much of what we do can actually be broken down into those tiny atomic habits that James Clear talks about.
Yeah.
Those simple steps, that one thing you can do to improve your circumstance. So instead of all or nothing, it's all or something.
Yeah, you take baby steps forward until maybe eventually you can do it in the perfect, and I'm using perfect in air quotes way. And what are some of the things that we're talking about? We're talking about exercise. We're talking about our food, our diet, and we're talking about sleep and a whole bunch of other things. And I'd like to start out by talking about exercise because there seems to be a stigma about modifying exercises. Yeah. We grow up being told things like, no pain, no gain. Yeah. Or I wrote one down that I saw on the internet. Pain is just weakness leaving the body.
Yeah, or sweat is your fat crying. Or
oh my God, that just makes me cringe. It sends me from 0 to angry.
But people still feel, and I see it all the time, people say like, I can't walk for 2 days after leg day. Like it's a badge. And you're like, but now you can't do anything. So, and I would do that too. I would do squats for an hour and then not be able to walk the next day.
And doing things like that used to lead me to hating it. And then I would just dread it. And then I would stop doing it. Like I might be able to push through and keep doing it for a while. But
if you hate something,
that's not good. You're not going to keep doing it.
Donald actually found some research. Didn't you?
Well, I found a website, this woman named Allison Lambert. She was a college athlete and she does fitness for a living now. And she says on her website that she modifies exercises all the time. And she says incorporating modifications can help your body function better, last longer, and reduce the likelihood of injury.
That's for suckers.
Yeah, exactly. So if you can't do the perfect push-up or you can't do the perfect, squat or the perfect whatever particular exercise, sit up, crunch, whatever, there is probably a modification out there for you that you can do that will help you build up to the part where you can do the actual exercise. So doing the modification can help to improve your current condition while preventing further diseases and conditions while you're doing it.
That's so important because I definitely used to see it as all or nothing. I either would go to the gym every day or I would not go at all. I would either work out with a trainer or do nothing and sit on the couch. And allowing yourself to be be a novice at something, allowing yourself to give a little bit of effort each day instead of, I work out 2 or 3 times a month. I don't remember. I don't have a plan for it.
Yeah.
I just kind of figure it out. But going back to the modifications too, I know I personally used to think up until very recently that a modification was like, just do it on your knees, whatever it is, do it on jump rope, do it on your knees. Like that there was only an on or an off switch for either the perfect form or a lesser form. And Jill Brown Fitness, who is a personal trainer in Southern California, she actually posted a video that I think Donald will link to in the show notes.
I will happily link to it in the show notes.
But she is in fantastic shape and was showing form for doing push-ups. But then she blew my mind by showing 5 different modifications for push-ups. And I thought there was only one in the history of the universe. And it blew my mind that you could do it sort of, on your knees with your back flat instead of tilted like a plank.
Yeah. And
you can do it one leg, 2 leg.
We talk a lot about Cassie Ho and all of her Blogilates videos. And she mentions modifications for nearly every exercise. You know, if you can't do it the way I'm doing it, then do it this way. If you can't, you can do it this way or that way. To make it easier, to make it suit you. And one of the benefits of this is that you can protect your current injuries while preventing new injuries from happening. So if you've got bad knees, a bad back, a bad shoulder, like whatever, you can modify your exercise to protect those injuries and not re-aggravate them and make them worse.
Well, and also when you're in a class or you're taking, yoga or a fitness class, you can also just skip a movement altogether. And we've talked about that before, but it is so important to just know your boundaries and not push yourself too hard, because I think that risk of injury is a real issue because it can leave you not being able to exercise at all. And another part of the whole fitness thing, more than just modification, is understanding that you don't have to give 30 minutes. You don't have to give 60 minutes if you don't have it. Maybe some days you do have 30 to 60 minutes to do it.
Yeah.
But if you can only give 5 minutes, do 5 minutes. I found a Yoga with Adriene video where she actually has her yoga videos broken out by time. So videos under 10 minutes, videos under 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And the idea of doing an hour of yoga made me want to cry. But I was like, I could do 5 minutes.
Makes me want to cry right now.
But it really, and I know I've said this before, and I say things, but then I do them myself. I'm like, hey, guess what? It's true. Like I've been doing 5-minute yoga videos every day for the last week, and it feels quick. It's easy.
Yeah.
It's not an hour. I'm not standing on my head, but I'm getting into the practice of making it a practice to do it. And I was doing 5-minute videos during the week. And then yesterday I did a 20-minute video because I had the time to do it. And that fear factor was gone because I gave myself permission to give as little effort as possible.
Yeah.
But keep the practice in place. Keep that bookmark. Keep that appointment with myself each day. So that time thing is huge. If you can't give a lot of time, 5 minutes matters.
Yeah, if you're staring down the barrel of an hour of yoga and that is just too much, or an hour of anything or 30 minutes of anything and it's all just too much, step back and say to yourself, what can I doctor? And figure out what you can do for you, because modifying an exercise workout helps get rid of excuses. You can start where you need to be. You can do a workout that caters to your body and your needs. Do you know how you can get stronger, leaner, and improve cardio? Do you?
I don't.
You can do an exercise that you can do right now.
Oh.
Like, that's how you do it. We've told this story before, but there was a gentleman who weighed something like 500 pounds and couldn't even get out of bed. And eventually he lost, something like 300 pounds, and he couldn't get out of bed. So he started just by shaking himself.
Like tensing his muscles.
And shaking in bed. And eventually was able to then move on to getting out of bed and, slowly over time, building up to the point where he was able to do, what we would say, quote unquote, our real exercises. And the point here is that anything is a real exercise. Any movement that you can do, that you can incorporate into your life. If something seems too hard, doctor.
Yeah, like cut it back. Give 50%. What's a C? Like you don't have to run a mile. If you can run for 10 seconds, start there. That's where I started. I started literally, I ran for 18 seconds, lost my keys in my wallet, which was super fun. Get a fanny pack, everybody.
Yeah.
But starting where you are is okay. And there's no shame in it. And if it leads to you not being injured, and even better, inspiring someone else to get off the couch, that's huge.
Yeah,
if you
for
can
sure.
be a role model for someone else just by your small incremental action, it really matters. So fitness is possible. And it's honestly, I think, was it Gretchen Rubin who said that something that you do every day is easier to keep a habit because you don't negotiate with yourself. Like,
Yeah.
I'll work out 3 days a week. Okay, well, you know what? At least I'll get in 5 minutes of walking every day. And then that becomes a pattern of behavior. Every day I brush my teeth. Every day I walk for 5 minutes.
Yeah,
There's
for
no
sure.
guesswork.
Exactly. So the next time that you're saying to yourself you're going to do nothing instead of doing some exercise, think to yourself,
Doctor.
And the same can be applied to your food, to
What?
your diet and your meal. You can look at your food and say, Doctor. So, I wanted to start out by reminding people of some of the low-calorie foods that you can, that are very versatile, that you can do a lot of things with. Things like eggs. Like, you could cook eggs like 400 different ways. That's scientifically proven.
The
about
only
400
weight
different
loss
ways.
podcast that suggests eggs.
Berries and fruit in general, yogurt, especially Greek yogurt, because of how high protein it is. Soup. There are so many different kinds of soups. Like, if you like soup, chances are there is a low cal, high volume version of the soup that you like that is going to satisfy you. Cottage cheese is another one that's a go-to for me a lot.
No.
I know. Yeah, Catherine doesn't like it at all.
You just get a single doctor on that one. I'm not
Yeah.
giving you a doctor.
I'm going to give
You
it a
can doctor
double
it by
doctor.
putting it in the trash.
You can doctor it up with pineapple or strawberry or blueberry. Or if you're Catherine, you can put it in the trash. And then condiments, things like ketchup are pretty low calorie. And here's a little secret that I am not going to tell anyone else but you, the fine listener. I lost 100 pounds and have kept it off for 2 years. I have never tracked my ketchup.
What?
I've never one time actually tracked my ketchup.
And he
which
uses a lot of ketchup.
I use a lot of ketchup. I don't typically recommend not counting things. Like, I have a rule, if it has sugar in it, that I track it. And if it doesn't have sugar in it, then maybe I don't. Like, if it's just a steamed vegetable.
Here's the thing. You didn't get diabetes because you had ketchup.
Yeah.
That's
I
not,
don't think so.
That's not, it wasn't like, oh, he's all made of ketchup. He's 100% Heinz. Everyone,
Yeah.
he's 57 Heinz for sure.
57 varieties of ketchup. But there are also plenty of things that have virtually no calories that you can use to doctor your food. And
We really got to work on that. I feel like it's
I don't know what you're talking about. I think it's wonderful and amazing. Things like hot sauce. Like, I literally have something like 6 kinds of hot sauce in the house right now that I use. It might even be more like 8 or 10 kinds of hot sauce that really, if there's something that I think is going to be fairly bland, which is almost everything, I think to myself, doctor, and put some hot sauce on it. There's, most mustards have virtually no calories. A1 steak sauce. I've been a vegetarian for 30 years. This year is my 30-year anniversary of it. And I still use A1 steak sauce like crazy because it itself is vegetarian, and I will put it on things like cauliflower.
He puts
and
it on
green
all the
beans
stuff.
and
all.
and not to mention veggie burgers and other sort of soy-based meats and things. Things like dill pickles. Like, somehow on the show, I became known as the
Oh my
pickle
gosh.
guy.
People have just started sending us pickles.
Yeah.
Pickle seasoning.
Pickled. There are pickled things like I have these take with you shelf stable packets that have like pickled artichoke hearts and pickled asparagus.
You can
and,
pickle that.
Pickled green beans and pickled snow peas, and they're things that I can just take anywhere with me and have a virtually calorie free snack just about anywhere. Dill relish. jarred peppers, banana peppers, tamed jalapenos, pepperoncinis. Like there's all kinds of like really easy to get peppers that have almost no calories in them that you can add to something.
Well, and the point of the doctoring part, which I'll interject because I have a lot of food things to say.
Maybe I
also.
skipped over that part. Maybe I skipped over the point of listing all of these virtual calorie-free foods.
Well, I have seen, and I spent a lot of my life eating as little food as possible when I was dieting.
Yeah.
I would have a dry piece of toast. I would have a sad, dry chicken breast, steamed broccoli. And I still see people doing that.
Yeah.
And there are ways to
Doctor.
the food to actually make it taste delicious. Like you don't have to eat sad food to make your fat cry to leave your body.
I have several veggie burgers that I eat that range from about 110 calories each to like 130 calories each. And there are ones that are much more high calorie than those, but I have found a few different kinds that I like that are around there. But I take onions, I take tomatoes, I take these sort of peppers I've been talking about. Add things like sauerkraut, which is virtually calorie free, and I alternate what I put on them, and it really spices them up, makes them more filling because it adds volume to the food. It pumps up the volume, which is a whole nother episode of the show.
Which is another episode.
And spices them up, sometimes literally and figuratively.
Well, and that's the thing. There are ways to add the volume for better satiety, because when you eat one small carrot, that's not super satisfying. But if you put hot sauce on it and salsa and doctor it up, it actually doesn't taste like sadness.
Yeah.
And I think that is the big point here, is that there are so many seasonings, spices, canned vegetables, fresh vegetables that can pump up the volume and pump up the flavor as well. And getting to a point where you're not just chicken and broccoli.
Yeah.
Or plain tofu and broccoli, where you can actually add seasonings and spices to make it taste delicious and you don't feel like crying in your food. I, for one, sort of to go back to the beginning, I don't go for diet food per se.
Yeah.
Like I know people who cut out all of the foods that they like or don't do anything because they're afraid, well, my husband makes dinner. What am I supposed to do? Well, I'm cooking for the whole family. What am I supposed to do? And I get that you can't maybe individualize your meal the way Donald and I do because we keep different schedules. But if you're cooking for a family or someone is cooking for you, you can take a small portion of the high calorie food, lasagna, chicken marsala, whatever it is, have a small portion of that and then pump up the volume with all the vegetables that Donald said. Pump up the flavor, leave off most of the sauce, but then add flavor with lower calorie marinades, spices, and volumes of vegetables. And before we get too far along, I want to talk about two very amazing products. And those products are applesauce and tzatziki.
Wow.
I've never said that before in my whole life. If I had said that 5 years ago.
Please don't mix them together. That sounds terrible.
No, that is a dare. No, I wanted to talk about modifying recipes without filling them with sadness. And those are two ingredients that I use separately and equally to...
You know how you read the ingredients on some packages and the last ingredient is love?
Well...
In this case, the last ingredient is sadness.
No, but we've had friends who will make us modified versions of delicious foods with making sad foods out of them. Like instead of using, any butter, they just use applesauce, or, they use carob instead of chocolate chips.
Yeah, I remember like somebody brought over this like spinach dip that was supposed to be vegan, and they were like, "We won't eat this."
No, this is gross, but you'll probably
sure
like
you'll
it.
enjoy it. Yeah.
Well, and I had someone made a chocolate cake for me, but it was made with applesauce and carob.
Oh my God.
It was terrible, and it was a very nice gesture.
Carob does not need to exist.
No, that's like a 1970s myth.
God.
I don't understand it. Anyway, so the point of my story is instead of making things taste 100% like sadness, you can modify them and make them taste maybe 50%.
50% sadness.
Yeah, just sort of glum.
Yeah.
But our daughter and I make a banana bread recipe. And when we used to make it in the before times, it called for a quarter cup of oil in the recipe.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of calories when you add it
A
up.
lot.
Delicious, delicious calories. But instead of making it 100% sad and applesauce based, I started putting in mostly applesauce and then some oil. So it actually, like, I put in 2 tablespoons of oil and then the balance was applesauce, and they actually taste really good. And you don't have to eliminate all deliciousness.
I can vouch for the fact they do taste really good.
Yeah, or if something calls for chocolate chips, don't punish people with carob. Don't do it.
No.
Maybe do 50% as many chocolate chips.
Yeah.
It's still delicious. You get the chocolate in there. You reduce the calories, but it's not all that terrible. But try to do that on recipes that call for oil or butter. Maybe just cut it in half instead of going all the way to sadness. And then also, tzatziki, we're taking you to the peninsula of Greece for another bit of inspiration.
Not one of my favorite things, let me tell you.
But I started using tzatziki as a supplement for salad dressings. Now, ranches, your buttermilks are delicious, but very high in calorie. Doesn't go very far. So I started
So
putting...
you looked at it and decided to...
Doctor. So I started using a small amount of full-fat salad dressing and then supplementing it with tzatziki, which is about 1 gram is 1 calorie, which is, for you nerds out there, that's what Donald likes to do. But so I use maybe a tablespoon of the salad dressing that I really enjoy, and then I supplement it with 1 or 2 tablespoons of tzatziki, which is really low calorie, and then I throw in a pile of salsa on top of that, or pico de gallo. Guess
so
what?
It's half full-fat dressing, half tzatziki, and half salsa.
That is, yes, 150% true. And then the rest, it's no sadness, actually, because it's really delicious and creamy.
Zero sadness.
And it goes a long way, which feels much better than having, like, you know when they tell you, like, get 1 tablespoon of delicious dressing and then dip your fork in it.
Oh, yeah.
And then just have a whisper of it.
Just a whisper of dressing.
Of dressing.
No one's ever been satisfied by a whisper
No,
of
you
dressing.
get like a third of the way through, and it just is like, well, I guess I'm not eating any more salad because it's all gone. So adding volume with tzatziki and with salsa or pico de gallo, I make a combination. It's sort of a slurry, if you will, of just...
That sounds delicious.
No, but it's like, it's really delicious. It's creamy, it's spicy, and it goes a lot farther than just having 1 tablespoon of dressing on a tiny little toothpick. You
Flurry
just dip
of Sadness is one of my all-time favorite bands, by the way.
Good.
Just can't get better than
Good
that.
stuff. So don't think about all of this as taking away from yourself. Just modify it so that you're making better choices, you're still feeling satisfied, and it doesn't taste like sadness.
Look at it and say to yourself,
Doctor.
Changing your portion size is another way to Doctor. You know, like Catherine said, somebody in your family makes you a high-calorie thing, take a smaller portion of it, but then add a large portion of broccoli or cauliflower or green beans or something that's really going to fill you up that has virtually no calories in it.
Well, and I used to see that too, I think, with my mom when she would be on a diet. She would make dinner, and then she would have some small side salad and a dry piece of chicken as her food.
Yeah.
And it feels exclusive. It feels lonely, and it feels like you're being punished by not being able to enjoy food. And we have gone out of our way this time to include foods that we really enjoy, but really pumping up the volume with vegetables and salsas and low-calorie foods. And it's not about 100% on, 100% off. It's not about I either get to eat the food that I want or I don't. It's about figuring out that what is satisfying enough? How much of this can I have that still is delicious, that doesn't make me feel sad, and is also filling? Because we can either have one square of cheese, or we can have cheese with apples and a side of little pickles and you can add volume without really adding many calories. And it's not about, like I said, it's not about withholding flavor from yourself. It's not about punishing yourself with frozen meals. It's about figuring out ways to enhance them and enhance your entire experience. Not 100%. It doesn't have to be 100% perfect. We're just talking like, what would a C average look like on this? Like, how could we improve it?
Exactly.
So, Donald, you were talking about spices.
I was talking about spices.
Sorry, I took over the steering wheel for a minute.
Turns out that spices are the spice of life. And I just wanted to ask the question, Catherine, this all sounds great, but who's got time for it?
I don't have time. No, I have time for it. I have like 5 minutes.
Because you can doctor. And what I mean by that is you can look at, there are easy shortcuts that you can take to make these things happen. You don't have time to cut up an entire head of cauliflower. Guess what? They sell it pre-cut at your store. Like every store I go to now pretty much has the pre-cut stuff that you can just pop in the microwave.
And guess what? Okay, it costs a little bit more, but you know what costs more? The entire head of cauliflower that goes rotten in the fridge because you can't bear the idea of chopping it up. That's a waste.
Exactly. We buy this like chopped up pico de gallo at our local store that I think they do it in-house, and it's mostly just onions and tomatoes and cilantro, but like I throw it on veggie burgers or whatever.
It counts as my salad many nights because I can't even bear making a salad, but I can have a chicken breast and then put it on a pile of pico de gallo, and
that adds goodness to meal. Just about anything that I could eat. Adding sauerkraut to things. Tomatoes are huge and versatile, and not just slicing up a tomato, but eating a cherry tomato, or there are canned tomatoes. There are fire roasted canned tomatoes that they fire roast without adding any oil to them. So, I mean, like the entire can is, I forget what, 60, 70 calories, something like that.
Yeah, I do stewed tomatoes from time to time with meatballs and then a little sprinkle of Parmesan cheese. And there's some calories in it, but it makes it taste sort of like a meatball stew situation without that many calories, but it still tastes delicious. Little hot sauce on there,
and salsa is a big one.
Salsa
that is huge for spicing things up. Most salsas are virtually calorie free, and you got to watch out for like your mango or your pineapple salsa because they have a bit of calories in them. But I do this thing when I'm in a pinch, or sometimes even when I'm not. Annie's ravioli. They make this cheesy ravioli. It's a can. There's 310 calories in the entire can, and I will take the can and I'll add some salsa and some fire roasted tomatoes to it. And I'll tell you, it's like eating, if I squint and use my imagination a little bit, it's like eating a fancy ravioli at a restaurant. And I mean, it takes virtually no effort on my part. But things like that. And then even sort of doubling up some of these doctor. Double up your doctor. I steam a bag of the pre-cut, pre-washed cauliflower or pre-washed, pre-cut green beans or something like that. And then add some, buffalo hot sauce to it. And
buffalo hot sauce is good.
Buffalo cauliflower or buffalo green beans, or throw a little A1 on those green beans or whatever. And, maybe some of you are like, I don't like any of that stuff, but chances are there's some spice or sauce or something that is virtually no calorie that you can use to doctor. Or pump up the doctor.
Wow. Oh, well, they can't all be winners.
Yeah.
But going back to the spices, like fennel seed is what Italian sausage tastes like.
Yeah.
Guess what? You sprinkle fennel seed on something, it tastes like you're having sausage without having sausage.
Yeah. It's a mind trick
it
almost.
Is. There is a seasoning popular in Southern California called Tajin, Tajin, which is a Latin spice that has lime and chili powder, and it makes everything taste really zesty and delicious.
It's good on watermelon.
Yeah, it's weird on fruit. It tastes really good. I thought it was a lie, but
I know.
it's delicious.
Fruit's already pretty good, but Throw a little of that on it to mix it up.
But you can put it on a salad. You can put it on chicken. You can put it on steak. You can put it on tofu. There's also cinnamon. Cinnamon isn't just for apple pie season.
No?
You can slice up an apple.
You can use cinnamon at other times of the year?
You can.
Doctor.
But I slice up apples and put a little dusting of cinnamon on top. It's like a cozy vacation in my mouth. It's delightful. And like Donald said, with hot sauces like buffalo sauce, it actually, there's studies that show that it leads to greater satiety because that hyper flavor matters. Pungent cheeses. There we go. Pungent cheeses like feta, blue cheese, gorgonzola, and Parmesan. A little sprinkle of that on anything. It adds a lot of flavor with very low calories. I mean, you could add like half a cup of cheddar cheese, which is fine. Yeah. But adding a little bit of gorgonzola, blue cheese, or feta.
Just to be clear, half a cup of cheddar is a lot of calories.
That's a lot of calories.
But a sprinkle of feta is not.
Yeah. So put that on pretty much anything, and it's delicious. And it adds a lot of flavor without all of the calories. In terms of like diet food, like we said, it is a great idea to add fruit to something that does not have fruit.
Oh, yeah.
What doesn't have fruit? Ice cream doesn't have fruit. Well, sometimes.
Yeah.
But like if you don't want diet food, have a small cup of ice cream and add a bunch of diced strawberries in there or some blueberries.
Yeah, for sure.
Add canned peaches to your yogurt.
And this may sound insane to some people, but if you gradually sort of step down your high power ice cream expectations, like I've started eating popsicles and they're between 35 and 40 calories a piece, and they really sort of scratch that frozen dessert itch for me.
Well, and they take a long time to eat.
And they take a long time to eat. And, assuming you don't just bite them immediately. Yeah, like you do with a Tootsie Pop. But they really last long and really, make me satisfy that frozen dessert itch for me.
Well, and also our daughter actually mentioned mashed potatoes.
Yeah.
What can we do with mashed potatoes? That all or nothing mentality, if you look online, what are alternatives to foods that make you happy? Like instead of mashed potatoes, have mashed cauliflower. Instead of pasta, have zoodles.
Yeah.
And you know what you can do? You can go 50-50.
Yeah.
You can go half cauliflower, half mashed potatoes, mix it together. So you're still getting some of that, normal, delicious flavor that you
or
like.
even just step it down gently. Like add 10% mashed cauliflower to start to your potatoes. And then next time maybe you do 20 or 25 until, I have found in my life that I get used to things. And,
right.
If I try to go immediately, it's just like anything else. If I try to go immediately from full-fledged Coca-Cola to sparkling water or something like that, the contrast is pretty great. But if you gradually do it, Catherine was telling me before we recorded, you can tell it.
Yeah. Chalene Johnson, the Chalene Johnson Show, which I also listened to, she talked about switching from, I think it was from soda to seltzer water, and none of her family wanted to do it. So she started by doing like 10% seltzer water and then the rest Coke. And then she went to 20% and 30%. So it was a gradual switch over time. It's the same thing with coffee. If you put creamer in your coffee and you would like to give that up, which is something I will never do.
You can pry her creamer out of her cold dead
people
hand.
Feel like, oh, well, I used to like half and half. Now I'm going to have 0% milk.
Right.
Like, what if you stepped it back gradually? Instead of 2 tablespoons of half and half, cut it down by half a tablespoon, and then go another week and then cut it down another half, and gradually wean yourself off of something instead of feeling like it's all or nothing, because it can feel really depressing when you feel like you have to abstain from things that you like. Don't give up the ice cream. Use a smaller portion and add the strawberries. Don't give up the soda altogether at once. Switch it out gradually. Like Donald has seltzer water at home, but then if we go to the movies, he might have a Coke.
Yeah.
And so it's still
very rarely, but sometimes.
It's in his life, but it's not an everyday thing.
Yeah, but look at your situation. Anytime you feel like you're in an all or nothing situation, look at the situation and ask yourself, Doctor.
Like,
is doctor? What can I do?
Is that a question?
I don't know. Ask yourself, doctor. But remind yourself that there can be situations where you can modify things. You can doctor up the situation in order to not have to have that all or nothing attitude.
Yeah, it's a big thing in Wolt Place, the doctoring of frozen meals, because a lot of us rely on those for lunch.
Yeah.
Have a frozen mac and cheese. Add some broccoli or cauliflower. I saw somewhere, I think Weight Watchers called it ghost broccoli. That's what cauliflower is. But take a lean cuisine and put it on a bed of lettuce, and then suddenly you've got a high volume meal.
Yeah.
Add salsa on top of mac and cheese, which is really delicious.
Oh my
Add
goodness,
some
it's so
vegetables.
good. Or the aforementioned fire roasted tomatoes.
But you can add flavor with seasoning, spices, sauces that make it feel like you're really indulging in something without those extra calories. And it's not about diet food separate from the rest of your family. It's not about going to a restaurant and having to abstain all of the way. We can have everything, but we have to choose strategically when to do it. Because before, Donald and I would get the appetizers.
Oh, yeah.
We would get 2 separate meals. We would get 2 separate desserts so that we could try.
Yeah, I believed I could not go out somewhere if I didn't get everything
Well, it was
that my
free.
heart desired. Yeah, exactly. At the beginning of this, we mentioned another thing that we can doctor, and that is sleep.
Ooh.
How can you doctor sleep, Catherine?
Well, I'll tell you. So again, with the all or nothing mentality, a lot of us want to get a better night's sleep. Maybe we're going to bed at 11 o'clock at night because we're scrolling Instagram or watching, I don't know, Simon and Simon.
Yes, Simon and Simon.
Heart
for
to
sure.
Heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Remington Steele.
All of those shows.
But we go, oh gosh, I need to get up earlier. It would really serve me to get up an hour earlier. Instead of going from that one whole hour earlier, if you're going to bed at 11 o'clock, going to bed at 10 o'clock, or from 10 to 9, that's a big extreme to expect of yourself overnight.
Yeah.
What if you started by doing 10 minutes earlier? What if you started at 9:50, the lights are out? What if you started waking up 10 minutes earlier? And then over time, switching your schedule so that it's a gradual change, because it feels impossible because we're asking too much of ourselves immediately. So many people stay up late because they feel like it's their time. Either the kids are asleep or you've worked late, and you feel like that night time is your time to decompress. And you feel like you're being robbed if you have to go to bed early.
And sleep is just like everything else that we talk about with exercise. Like every 10 minutes matters. If you can go to bed 10 minutes earlier and get 10 minutes more sleep, it really does matter. And there is science that backs it up.
Yeah, and it's not about punishing ourselves or creating new versions of ourselves. It's slowly changing our habits to better suit the life that we want to live. Because my old life was stay up until 11 o'clock watching Seinfeld, barely get out of bed at 7:15, roll into work 20 minutes late. Because I had to stop at the donut shop to get donuts and maybe some croissants also, and secret eating in my car and then going into the office.
Oh, wow, that's a lot of doctoring in the wrong direction.
It's a lot of doctoring in the morning, but getting to the point where I realized I thought it was a circumstance. I thought I just stay up late. I can't get out of bed in the morning. Now we go to bed at 9:30, 9:45. I'd like to actually start going to bed earlier.
Yeah.
But so I'm working on that. But now we get up the alarm goes off at 4:30, and I still struggle to get out of bed. I still want my coffee in the morning, but I couldn't have done that 5 years ago because I hadn't set up my life in a way that was
because we
sustainable
were
that
constantly staying up till 11:30, doing that thing where we would tell ourselves like, oh, I'll be asleep by 10:30, and then, messing around on our phones or reading or whatever until 11:30. And before I knew it, I was getting, no sleep at all.
Well, and beyond the sleep side of things, there are so many things in our work life and our family life, in just habits in our lives where we feel like we've got to do all or nothing. I want to spend a half hour reading and I can't. So now I'm mad. So I'm going to revenge eat.
Yeah.
What if you did a page? What if you just sat for 2 minutes and read a page? I can't do a deep cleaning in the kitchen. Okay, got some Lysol wipes. Why don't you do that for 2 minutes?
Yeah.
If you can't do a full workout, have a go-to 5-minute video that you do. If you can't do all the laundry, pick out the essentials and do a small load until you can, or do like I do, which is actually go to Target and I bought some socks because I couldn't do laundry. what would a C or a B effort look like instead of an A effort? If you can't call a friend, send them a quick text message saying hello. If you can't make an appointment with a therapist, can you listen to Headspace or Calm for 5 minutes to decompress?
Yeah.
If you can't make dinner, get a roasted chicken and a bag of steamed veggies. If you've got to get fast food, get the kids' meal. Don't even think about it. Don't negotiate with yourself. Don't get the large fry. Get the small fry and just keep it as an absolute. If you can't meal prep one week, it's okay to just make some eggs or toss out the vegetables, the giant head of cauliflower that's stuck in the refrigerator that's dying.
Yeah.
Throw it out. Just organize your space a little bit. Again, if you can't go to the gym, if you can't do your full workout, have a go-to 5-minute routine that you can do, that you can hold space for that activity each day. Read for a minute, brush your teeth for 30 seconds, do 2 squats, like put in those minimums there to keep the habit open, because all or nothing got us nothing for 40 years.
Yeah, nothing and worse than nothing for 40 years.
Well, and it made me resentful. Like I was like, oh, I can't do anything. And it's so much better to be in a position now where we consider the doctoring of our habit. What would 50% better look like? What would 20% better look like? Okay, well, we can't do that for an hour. Could we watch 5 minutes? We can't read. What can we do for 5 minutes? And having that agility and that flexibility is important, not just for the sheer practice of having salsa as an exciting food alternative.
Yeah.
It's about being nimble enough to modify your plans so that you're not stuck in this pattern where you're like, if I can't meal prep, I'm not going to do anything at all. If I can't go to the gym, I can't do anything at all. Having that flexibility means that you're making positive changes in your life that are subtle and small.
Yeah.
And
would you rather in 5 years be 20% better than you are now? Or would you rather be worse? Or would you rather be the same and still having this same conversation with yourself about, I can't do anything, so I may as well do nothing? Or would you rather have improved even 5%, 10%?
Well, and we have conversations where we'll think like, oh gosh, everything's ruined. Now we can't do whatever. And I have to kind of step back and go like, okay, what can we do? It's not optimal. It's not the best. Maybe we feel bad because we can't do 100%. But being open to that possibility of shifting things around is it's a growth mindset instead of a limiting mindset.
I'll tell you what we can do. We can
Doctor.
doctor.
But so in conclusion, we have told you many things.
The dictionary definition of doctor is...
So we have spent a lot of time sharing sort of hacks and tricks to modify your plan to hold space. In the end, very simply, Donald and I work on eating at a deficit to lose weight. That is the final kind of single, simple piece to all of this.
Yeah.
Is that eating at a deficit and moving gets us to our goals. That's how we lost weight. And over the process of the last 2 to 4 years, we have opened ourselves up to these modifications to help support our major goal. We figured out that we could add vegetables to macaroni and cheese, which is like, woohoo, scientists discovered that you can put things in macaroni and cheese. But that all or nothing mentality was so limiting. And we're at a point now where we can use all of these additional tools just to enhance our practice. But the main thing that will bring the scale down is eating at a deficit. That's all.
That is it.
And
mic drop. Only don't actually drop the mic.
Don't drop the mic. But we can give 1,000 tips and spreadsheets and tricks to get the weight off or change your mindset. But the eating at a deficit is where everything starts and stops. Everything else is optional. Sure, you can just have macaroni and cheese. Sure, you can skip the gym if you want to. But being open to change and modifying just enhances the experience. Because this is our whole life. Like, we're not at goal weight and then suddenly fixed.
Yeah.
We're still practicing all of this. It's not, well, now we're on the other side of this winning. We are still practicing all of these habits. And we challenge you to do the same thing. Modify what's in front of you. Look for 50% better. What could you change up to enhance your experience without feeling like you're being punished? How could you expect maybe a little less from yourself, but still make progress? Because a little bit, like Donald said, goes so much farther than just being stubborn and waiting for that perfect opportunity to open up when work calms down, when the kids are out of school. It's always a mirage in the future if you don't make time for it today. And if we can make time for it, you can make time for it. We believe in you.
We do believe in you. And thank you so much for listening to the show. We really appreciate every single one of you. If you would like to contact us, you can email us to weonlylookthin@gmail.com. And you might say something like, a few weeks ago, you had an episode that wasn't about doctoring anything, and Catherine mentioned Marcus Welby, MD, about 14 times. And then you had an episode called Doctor,
You didn't
and she
mention
didn't
him
bring
once.
up Marcus Welby even a single
I brought
time.
up no doctors.
If you'd like to do that sort of thing, email us at weonlylookthin@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at weonlylookthin.
Yeah, and we also have our online women's only support group, Wolt Place, WOLT Place. It's Facebook-based. It's a place for women only to be accountable, to share ideas, tips, and tricks, and to really be vulnerable in this, crazy internet world where there's a lot of division right now on the interwebs.
Yeah,
And,
in case you hadn't noticed.
And Wolt Place is just a safe, neutral space to focus on what we're all dealing with, which is our mindset around our food issues, our boundaries, and our fitness habits. So if you want more information on that, go to weonlylookthin.com and click on join our support group to get more information. We've got a monthly membership and a 3-month membership, and you get a couple of complimentary days if you're just starting out to see if it's the right fit for you. So come on and check it out.
And if you would like to do us a favor, if you got something out of this and would like to say to yourself, hey, what can I do for Catherine and Donald? You could go to Apple Podcasts and rate the show and maybe give it a quick review. Every single one of your ratings and reviews really helps us get the word out about the show. It helps other people to find us when they're searching for it or searching for similar shows. And
gosh darn it, it also makes us feel good. So
it does make us feel good. We really appreciate all of the kind things that you've said to us, and we are grateful for every single one of them.
So if you still don't know the difference between Duran Duran and Dr. Doctor, just remember that Donald and I are
an inspiration. The information that you hear on this podcast is for informational purposes only. The hosts are not medical professionals. You should always consult with your doctor, nurse, or other certified health professional before beginning any diet or fitness program.
yellow leather, red leather. Okay.